I stared at my wife, Allison, as she clutched her phone, her face draining of color. 5 years of marriage, and I had never seen that look in her eyes before. Pure panic. That was when she whispered his name. Jackson, her college sweetheart. The one who broke her heart 8 years ago. The one she swore she was over. Now he was in critical condition after a motorcycle crash. And suddenly our entire world was unraveling with 4 simple words. I still love him, Mac. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. I met Allison at a small coffee shop in downtown Seattle 6 years ago. It was one of those rainy Tuesday afternoons that Seattle is famous for. I was working on some code for a new application my company was developing when she accidentally bumped into my table, spilling her latte all over my laptop. I should have been angry. But the moment I looked up and saw her mortified expression, something inside me softened. "I am so sorry," she gasped, grabbing napkins frantically. "I will pay for any damages. I swear I am not usually this clumsy." I surprised myself by laughing. "Well, I have been looking for an excuse to upgrade this dinosaur anyway." That made her smile, revealing a small dimple in her right cheek that I would come to adore. We spent the next hour talking as my laptop dried out. She was an elementary school teacher with a passion for art and children's literature. I was a software developer who spent too many hours staring at screens. We were different in many ways, but something clicked between us. Our romance moved quickly after that. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. By 6 months, we were discussing moving in together. And exactly 1 year after the coffee incident, I proposed at the very same table where we met. The wedding was small but perfect, just close friends and family in a botanical garden overlooking Puget Sound. Life together felt easy. We settled into a comfortable routine in our small but cozy apartment. I continued climbing the ranks at my software company, while Allison poured her heart into teaching third graders. We established traditions: Sunday brunches at our favorite local diner, hiking trips on long weekends, and Friday night board games with takeout. I thought I knew everything about Allison. She was an open book, sharing stories from her childhood in Portland, her college adventures, her dreams for our future. But there was one chapter she spoke about differently: Jackson. Her voice always changed slightly when his name came up, becoming softer, more distant. I noticed it from the beginning. Allison met Jackson during her sophomore year of college. He was a senior studying architecture, tall and charismatic according to the few photos I had seen. They dated for 4 years, following each other to graduate school. Everyone expected them to get married. Then Jackson received an opportunity to work with a prestigious firm in Singapore. He left, promising they would make long-distance work. 6 months later, he called to tell her he had met someone else. Allison did not date anyone for nearly 2 years after that. The wound was deep. When she shared this story with me early in our relationship, I held her as she cried, silently vowing I would never hurt her that way. But I also felt something else, a twinge of insecurity that I tried to ignore. How could I compete with a ghost, with someone who had shaped so much of who she was? Still, as the years passed, Jackson's name came up less frequently. I believed we had built something real and lasting, until the cracks began to show. I first noticed the change about 3 months ago. Small things. Allison started checking her phone more often, angling the screen away from me. Our conversations became superficial, focused on daily logistics rather than dreams or feelings. The physical distance grew too. She would turn away when I reached for her at night, claiming exhaustion from work. I tried everything to reignite our connection. Surprise date nights at her favorite restaurants, small gifts left on her pillow, weekend getaways to the coast. She would smile and thank me, but the warmth never quite reached her eyes. Something was slipping away, and I could not figure out how to hold on to it. 2 weeks before the accident, We had our first serious argument in years. We had always planned to start trying for children after our 5th anniversary, which was approaching in a month. When I brought it up over dinner, excitement in my voice, as I talked about converting our home office into a nursery, Allison went silent. "I am not sure I am ready," she finally said, staring at her plate. "We have been talking about this for years," I replied, confused. "What changed?" "Nothing changed. I just think we should wait a little longer. My classroom is particularly challenging this year, and you just took on that new project at work." It made sense logically, but something in her tone felt off. For the first time, I wondered if there was something she was not telling me. The day of the accident started, like any ordinary Saturday. I made pancakes while Allison brewed coffee. We ate on our small balcony, watching the city wake up below us. I had plans to prepare a special dinner that evening, hoping to finally address the growing distance between us. Allison was folding laundry when her phone rang. I was in the kitchen, slicing vegetables for the dinner I had planned, but I could hear her voice change. Mid-conversation, the laundry basket crashed to the floor. When I rushed into the living room, she was standing completely still. Her phone clutched so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "Allie, what is it?" I asked, immediately concerned. "It is Jackson," she whispered. "He was in a motorcycle accident this morning. He is in critical condition at Harbor Medical." I reached for her hand. "I am so sorry to hear that. Do you want me to call his family, or perhaps send flowers to the hospital?" That was when she looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and shattered our world with a single sentence. "Mac, I need you to take me to the hospital right now. Please," she sobbed. "I need to be there. I still love him." The drive to Harbor Medical Center was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Allison sat beside me, but she might as well have been on another planet. She stared out the window, one hand constantly wiping away tears, the other clutching her phone like a lifeline. Every few minutes it would buzz with updates from someone at the hospital. I never asked who. My mind raced through every moment of our marriage, re-examining them under this new, harsh light. Had she always loved him? Was I just a placeholder, a comfortable option? While the one she truly wanted was halfway around the world. The Seattle streets blurred as my vision clouded with unshed tears. I blinked them away, determined to maintain control. "Did you recently start talking to him again?" I finally asked, my voice unnaturally calm. Allison flinched as if I had shouted. "He moved back to Seattle 3 months ago," she admitted softly. "We ran into each other at the education conference downtown. It was completely unexpected. 3 months ago, exactly when everything started to change between us. The timeline was like a knife twisting in my chest, and you have been seeing him since then." I kept my eyes fixed on the road, afraid of what my face might reveal if I looked at her. "Not seeing him. Not like that," she said quickly. "Just coffee a few times. To catch up. We were friends for years before we dated, you know that." I did know that. She had told me many times how Jackson had been her best friend first, how their relationship had grown from a deep friendship. Somehow that made this betrayal even worse. We pulled into the hospital parking lot, and Allison was unbuckling her seatbelt before I had even shifted into park. I grabbed her wrist gently, needing one more answer before we went inside. "Do you want our marriage to continue?" The question hung between us. She hesitated just for a second, but it was enough. "I do not know what I want right now, Mac. I just need to make sure he is okay. Can you please try to understand?" I nodded and released her wrist. What else could I do? The hospital corridors stretched endlessly sterile and cold under fluorescent lights. We followed signs to the intensive care unit, Allison, walking slightly ahead of me now. 2 people were already in the waiting area, a woman in her 60s with Jackson's strong jawline, and a younger man who had to be his brother. They looked up as we approached, and their faces registered immediate recognition when they saw Allison. "Oh, Allie," the older woman cried, standing to embrace my wife. Thank God you are here. He has been asking for you. My wife. Asking for my wife. The words echoed in my head as I stood awkwardly to the side, completely forgotten. Allison clung to the woman, Jackson's mother, sobbing against her shoulder. Has there been any update? Allison asked, pulling back, but keeping hold of her hands. The surgery went well. They removed the pressure on his brain. But we will not know the full extent of the damage until he wakes up completely, the brother explained. Then, almost as an afterthought, he glanced at me. And you are? This is Mac, Allison said quickly. My husband. The way she said it, like an inconvenient footnote to the real story happening here, made something inside me crack. Jackson's family exchanged a quick look I could not interpret before politely extending hands to greet me. James, the brother, introduced himself. And this is our mother, Diana. Diana looked at me with something like pity in her eyes. Thank you for bringing Allison. Jackson will be so relieved to see her. I nodded mechanically, unable to form words that would not reveal the turmoil inside me. We sat in that waiting room for what felt like eternity. Allison huddled with Diana, heads bent close as they shared stories about Jackson. Occasionally they would laugh quietly before remembering the seriousness of the situation. I sat 3 chairs away, scrolling mindlessly through work emails I could not focus on. After 2 hours, a doctor in blue scrubs approached. The patient is stable now. He is asking for family. Diana stood immediately, then turned to Allison. He would want to see you too, dear. My wife looked at me briefly, a silent question in her eyes. I nodded once, giving permission I had no right to withhold. Without another word, she followed Diana and the doctor through the double doors leading to the ICU. James murmured something about getting coffee and disappeared down the hall. I was alone. 20 minutes passed before I gathered the courage to walk to the ICU doors. Through the small window, I could see into Jackson's room. He was propped up slightly against pillows, his head bandaged, but awake and alert. Allison sat at his bedside, her back to the door, her hand holding his. As I watched, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against their joined hands. Then she lifted her face and kissed his bandaged forehead with such tenderness that I had to look away. When I looked back, Jackson's gaze had shifted. He was staring directly at me through the window, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. I stepped back quickly, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed with a message from Allison. This might take a while. You can go home if you want. If I want. As if anything about this situation was what I wanted. I retreated to the hospital cafeteria, unable to face the drive home alone just yet. The place was nearly empty at this hour. I ordered coffee I did not want and sat at a corner table trying to process what was happening to my life. My parents had divorced when I was 12. My father had an affair with a coworker, devastating my mother. I had sworn I would never put anyone through that kind of pain. Yet here I was on the other side of betrayal. Are you okay, honey? The elderly waitress stopped beside my table, concern etched on her face. You have not touched your coffee, and you look like you have seen a ghost. My wife is upstairs with her ex-boyfriend, I found myself saying. She just told me she still loves him. The woman's face softened with understanding. She patted my shoulder gently. Some things we just cannot control, no matter how much we want to. I checked my watch. 3 hours had passed since Allison had gone into Jackson's room. I left cash on the table and walked back to the ICU waiting area. Still no sign of her. I texted again. Are you coming home tonight? Her response came quickly. This time, I am going to stay. His condition might change overnight. No apology. No explanation. Just the painful truth that she was choosing to spend the night at his bedside, rather than face what was happening between us. I walked to my car alone, the Seattle rain matching my mood perfectly. Our apartment felt foreign when I returned, like I was walking into a museum of someone else's life. Photos of our wedding hung on the wall by the entryway. Allison's cardigan draped over the couch arm. The ingredients for the dinner I had planned to make still sitting on the kitchen counter abandoned. I moved through the rooms aimlessly, at first touching objects that connected us. Books we had read together, the chess set she had given me for Christmas, the quilt her grandmother had made for our bed. How quickly the symbols of love can transform into artifacts of loss. I knew I should sleep, but the thought of lying in our bed alone was unbearable. Instead, I began pulling a suitcase from the closet. I had no concrete plan, just the certain knowledge that I could not be here when she returned. As I opened my dresser to gather clothes, I knocked over a stack of books on the nightstand. When I bent to pick them up, I noticed Allison's journal had fallen open on the floor. She had always kept a journal, writing in it almost daily. I had never once read it, respecting her privacy completely. But now, with my world collapsing around me, I hesitated only briefly before picking it up. The entry was dated 2 months ago. Saw Jay again today. We met at the little cafe by the waterfront. 3 hours passed like minutes. He is exactly the same, but somehow different too. More mature, more grounded. He apologized again for how things ended. Said leaving me was the biggest mistake of his life. My hands trembled as I flipped through more recent entries. Jay asked if I was happy with Mac. I said yes, automatically. But the question has been echoing in my mind all day. Am I happy or just comfortable? Met Jay for lunch again. Had to lie to Mac about a teacher planning meeting. The guilt is eating me alive, but I cannot stop. When Jay touched my hand today, it felt like electricity. Jay asked if we could try again. Said he never stopped loving me. I told him I am married, that I made vows. But the words felt hollow, even as I said them. What if I made those vows to the wrong person? The final entry was from just 5 days ago. Jay invited me to his lake house this weekend. Said we need uninterrupted time to figure things out. I agreed. I do not know how to tell Mac I have made a mistake. That what Jay and I had never really ended for me. Mac deserves someone who loves him completely. I care about him deeply, but now I realize it has always been Jay. Always. The lake house, this weekend, the accident, had prevented their planned rendezvous. A bitter laugh escaped me as I realized the cruel irony. If not for Jackson's accident, I might still be in the dark, waiting for a wife who never came home. The crushing weight of betrayal became physical pain in my chest. I sank to the floor, journal still clutched in my hands, struggling to breathe through the tightness. Everything we had built was a lie. 5 years of marriage, the future we had planned, all of it constructed on a foundation of her unresolved feelings for another man. I reached for my phone and called the one person I knew would understand. Thomas, I need help. My best friend since college did not hesitate. What is wrong? Where are you? At home. Allison is at the hospital with her ex-boyfriend. She told me she still loves him. A brief silence. Pack a bag. You are staying with me tonight. Thomas arrived 30 minutes later, his expression grim but supportive. He helped me gather essentials, asking few questions, but offering steady presence. You should take anything important, he advised, watching me stare blankly at our bookshelf. Anything you would regret leaving behind. I nodded, selecting a few meaningful items: the watch my grandfather had given me, photo albums from before Allison, my external hard drives with work projects. Everything else suddenly seemed meaningless. Before we left, I wrote a note on a piece of paper torn from my work notebook. Do not worry. He can have you now. I placed it on the kitchen counter where she would find it immediately. Thomas put a hand on my shoulder as I took one last look around. You sure about this? I was not sure about anything anymore, but I nodded anyway. I cannot be here when she comes back. The drive to Thomas's house across town was silent. He lived in a small bungalow with a spare room he used as an office, but that contained a pull-out couch. It would do for now. As he made up the bed with fresh sheets, reality began to sink in. I was homeless. My marriage was over. The future I had planned had evaporated in a single afternoon. "I have beer in the fridge and stronger stuff in the cabinet," Thomas said, "and I am taking tomorrow off work. Whatever you need, man." I thanked him, but declined the alcohol. I needed clarity, not numbness. That night I lay awake, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, replaying every moment of the day, wondering where exactly my life had derailed so completely. Morning brought the first barrage of messages from Allison. They started as simple questions. "Where are you? Why are you not answering?" Then escalated to panic when she presumably found my note. "Mac, please call me. We need to talk. It is not what you think." By noon, her tone had shifted again. "I did not mean it, Mac. Please come back. I made a terrible mistake. I love you, not him." I was confused. I stared at the messages, feeling an unexpected sense of calm. The pain was still there, a gaping wound in my chest, but alongside it was something new. Relief. The terrible limbo of the past 3 months of knowing something was wrong, but not what had ended. Now I knew exactly where I stood, and there was a certain freedom in that knowledge. Allison showed up at Thomas's house that evening, eyes red and swollen from crying. Thomas answered the door, blocking her view inside. "He does not want to see you right now," I heard him say firmly. "Please, Thomas. 5 minutes. I need to explain." "There is nothing to explain," I said, joining Thomas at the door. The sight of her disheveled and desperate sent conflicting waves of love and anger through me. "Your journal explained everything." Her face paled. "You read my journal?" "Yes, including your plans for a weekend getaway with Jackson. Quite a coincidence that his accident prevented." "That was not it, Mac. Those were just confused thoughts. I was not thinking clearly." "No, for once you were thinking clearly. Too clearly. I realize it has always been, Jay. Always. Your words, not mine." She stepped forward, reaching for my hand. I was wrong. End of section 200. And Mini made it in Devon. Jay Hender. When I saw him in that hospital bed when I thought he might die, I was emotional. But then we talked, and I realized. I pulled my hand away. "What did you realize, Allison? That he rejected you. That now that he has seen you again, he does not actually want to pick up where you left off." Her silence confirmed my suspicion. Thomas shifted uncomfortably beside me. "I will give you two some privacy," he murmured, stepping back inside. When we were alone, Allison's composure crumbled completely. "Jackson told me he was delirious when he asked for me. That he is seeing someone in Portland now. That what we had was in the past. So there it was. She had not chosen me. She had been rejected by him. Again. And now you want me back," I said flatly. "Your safety net. Your second choice." "No, Mac. You are not my second choice." I was confused, nostalgic for something that was not real. I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly exhausted. "Do you know what the worst part is? If he had said yes, if he had welcomed you back with open arms, you would not be here right now. You would be with him, and I would be nothing but a footnote in your love story with Jackson." "That is not fair," she whispered. "None of this is fair, Allison. Not to me." I straightened up, finding strength I did not know I had. "I will not be your backup plan. I deserve better than that. We both do." "What are you saying I am saying?" "I will have my lawyer contact you about divorce proceedings. I will get the rest of my things when you are at work. Mac, please." Tears streamed down her face. 5 years together. Does that mean nothing? It meant everything to me, I replied quietly. but apparently not enough to you. I closed the door gently but firmly, leaning my forehead against it as I listened to her sobbing on the other side. Eventually, I heard her footsteps retreat, followed by the sound of her car starting and driving away. Only then did I allow my own tears to fall. Thomas found me still standing there minutes later. He did not speak, just handed me a glass of whiskey and sat with me in silence, as the reality of my decision settled around us. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. I found a small one-bedroom apartment, not far from my office, and furnished it minimally. Thomas and another friend helped me move the few possessions I had claimed from my former home, collected during a tense afternoon when Allison was teaching. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects that kept me at the office until late in the evening. My boss noticed my sudden dedication and mentioned a potential promotion if I could complete the new client interface ahead of schedule. I accepted the challenge gratefully, welcoming anything that would occupy my mind. Allison continued reaching out. Calls, texts, even emails, to my work account. I responded only to practical matters regarding our separation. She left tearful voicemails describing her regret, her confusion, her love for me. I listened to each one once, then deleted them. 3 weeks after I left, I joined a gym in my new neighborhood, needing physical exertion to complement the mental strain. The routine of early morning workouts became therapeutic. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage, accepting invitations I would have previously declined in favor of evenings at home with Allison. 1 month to the day after Jackson's accident, I agreed to have coffee with Jenna, a colleague from the marketing department, who had been supportive during my sudden life upheaval. She was smart and funny, with no romantic expectations. Just conversation with someone who did not look at me with pity. "You seem better," she observed as we sat in the company cafe. "More present." "I started therapy last week," I admitted. "Turns out, having your wife declare her love for another man qualifies as trauma." Jenna smiled sympathetically. "My ex-husband left me for his personal trainer. Trust me, I understand. Trauma." For the first time in weeks, I laughed genuinely. There was something healing about shared experience, about knowing I was not alone in navigating betrayal. 6 weeks after moving out, I met with Allison and our respective lawyers to discuss initial divorce terms. She looked smaller, somehow subdued, in a way I had never seen her. When our eyes met across the conference table, I felt a dull ache rather than the sharp pain I had expected. Progress, my therapist would call it. After the meeting, she asked if we could speak privately. Against my better judgment, I agreed. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," she said, without preamble. I threw away something real and precious for a fantasy. I looked at her carefully. This woman I had loved completely. "Are you still seeing him?" She hesitated. "We have coffee sometimes, as friends." And there it was. Even now, she could not let him go completely. I removed my wedding ring and placed it on the table between us. "I hope you find happiness, Allison. I really do. But it will not be with me." She picked up the ring, fingers trembling. "What if I stop seeing him? What if I prove to you that you are the one I want?" "The problem is that you have to prove it at all," I said gently. "Love should not require proof. It should just be." I walked away then, feeling the weight of the past 6 years, lifting slightly with each step. Not gone completely. Perhaps it never would be. But lighter. Manageable. 6 months later, my promotion had become official. I was leading a team developing a new platform that had attracted significant industry attention. My apartment, once a sparse refuge, had slowly transformed into a home that reflected my tastes alone. I had gone on several dates, nothing serious, but each one a small step toward believing in connection again. On a rainy Saturday, much like the one when I first met Allison, I was having lunch at a new restaurant downtown when I saw them. Jackson and Allison sitting together at a corner table, his arm draped casually across the back of her chair, as she laughed at something he said. I braced myself for the pain the jealousy, the anger. But what surprised me was how little I felt beyond a vague sadness for what might have been. They noticed me at the same time. Jackson looked away quickly, but Allison held my gaze, a complex mixture of emotions crossing her face. I nodded once in acknowledgement, then returned to my meal. As I walked back to my car afterward, my phone buzzed with a text from her. "I hope you are doing well, Mac." I considered not responding, but then typed, "I am. I hope you are too." It was true. Despite everything, I did not wish her unhappiness. What I had learned over these months was that sometimes loving someone means recognizing when they cannot give you what you need. And sometimes loving yourself means refusing to accept less than you deserve. That night, as I met Jenna for our third official date, I realized something profound. The end of my marriage had not been the end of my story. It had been the beginning of a new chapter. One where I valued myself enough to be someone's first choice, not their safety net. And that realization, painful as it had been to reach, was worth every tear shed along the way. Have you ever found yourself being someone else's second choice? Drop a comment below about how you handled that situation. Did you stay or walk away? Your experiences might help someone else facing a similar crossroads. If this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons. And remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to choose yourself when others do not.